Well, hello, and welcome to another lesson of the Focus on DatoCMS course. I am Marcelo Lune, the Headless Creator. As always, get a hold of me right there, marcelo@headlesscreator.com. Send me an email with questions, comments, ideas for the future. I'd love to hear from you. Today, my guest presenter is Natalia Baeza. She's a full stack developer at Cantieri Creativo, and she's going to show us how to use scripts to migrate DatoCMS content schema. You'll learn all about that. You're going to see code. It'll be really cool. But first, we're going to learn a little bit more about her, and I'm going to bring her in. Natalia, let me unmute you here. There we go. Oh, we both did it. No problem. Natalia, welcome. How are you?
I'm good, thank you. Thank you for having me.
I'm glad to have you here. So you're in Italy now, right?
Yes.
Okay, now, but you're originally from Colombia.
Yes.
Right, okay. So we're the United Nations here, because I'm originally from Argentina, but I'm in the US, so I love this. The internet
I
is
also
fun.
lived most of my life in the US. So.
Did you really? Oh, I didn't know that. See, we've been talking for a little while. I had no clue. Whereabouts? I mean, what state?
So I did college in Alabama, then I moved to Boston, then I did my PhD at Notre Dame, so South Bend.
Amazing. My wife is from Boston, actually. So
cool.
Yeah,
Lovely.
but I've always been a West Coast guy. So anyway, glad to have you here. Real quick, give us a little bit about your background. You're a full stack developer. How did you get into development?
So I actually, so I mentioned I did a PhD. It was in philosophy, actually. So I did very different things, but
Yeah.
I was always very interested in the philosophy of mathematics and logic and things like that. And then a couple of years ago, a friend introduced me to coding, started doing some coding challenges and just loved it. So I did a boot camp and here I am.
So you're a full stack developer. Do you prefer front end or back end development, or does it matter to you?
I really enjoy both. Every time I'm mostly doing one, I think that's it. I'm most of a back-end person, and then I do some front end, and I'm like, oh no, I love front end. So I really like it all.
So you like the variety?
Yeah.
Yeah. Cool. Any tips for anybody that wants to get into development that you would say, hey, do this or don't do this, that you learned along the way?
I don't know. You really have to try and look at what's out there and see what works for you. The main thing is don't be scared to get into it, even if you have never coded anything, because there are lots of resources, and it's a jump that you really can make. And of course, an area that is growing incredibly fast, and so there are lots of opportunities
Oh
and
yeah.
things to do. It's
Yeah,
really
I mean,
fun.
programmers are highly needed for every aspect of society now, right? Yeah.
Definitely.
Very cool. All right. So I usually end my interviews with something personal. Everybody knows I'm a movie buff. Do you have a favorite movie? Or I can ask you, what's your favorite dish? Your food, because I like food too. So.
Well, we were talking about movies before, so
let's do a movie. What's your favorite movie?
I haven't watched movies in a long time. My favorite movie, but I haven't seen it in many years, used to be The Seventh Seal. Do you know it?
Okay, no, I don't. I haven't seen it.
It's really great. But recently, so the most recent movie I watched, I was saying before, is Don't Look Up. I watched it last night, and I found it really interesting. It made me think a lot. So.
I watched it as well. I think it's available on Netflix. I think it is.
Yes.
And I enjoyed it. I thought it had some good laughs. It had a message, obviously, as well. And so overall, I think, what do you give it between 1 and 5? 5 being the best.
Oh, well, it depends on what we're rating it about, no?
Like enjoyment overall.
But I think enjoyment overall, 4.
Okay.
And I think it's also, it makes you think about lots of things that are relevant right now.
Yep,
so
because of that message.
Good.
Yep.
Yeah.
I give it about a 3.8, so we're pretty close. All right. But you know what? People didn't come here to listen about movies, or maybe they did. I don't know. Maybe I'll get a lot more people if we just talk about movies. But we're going to get started. I'm showing your screen, so we're all set. If any of you have any questions, and I see some comments already, if any of you have any questions, please feel free to type them in the chat. I will ask Natalia during the presentation. Natalia, if I have questions, I'll jump in. But otherwise, it's all yours.
Okay, great. So before I get into migrations and how to write migration scripts, I wanted to talk a little bit about environment, because Migrations, we use migrations to create and modify data environments. So an environment has all the models, records, uploads, plugins, SEO settings, etc., that you have in your project. And every data project has a primary environment. And that's where all the regular editorial workflow happens, so where contents are added and so on. And then you can create as many sandbox environments as you want. A sandbox environment always starts out as a fork of the primary environment. That means as an exact copy of it. And then you can use it to do all your testing development. You can think of it kind of like a Git branch. So if we go here, this is a Dado project, the project I'm going to be using today. You can see here the primary environment. And if I go to settings, environments, you can see here, this is another environment I created for this project, but you see the primary, you can fork it. Then you just give it a name, any name that you want. Create environment, and there it is. We have a copy, and then we can use this to do all your testing. And to switch environments, you just go up here, and you can see all the environments in your project, and you just click into the one you want to go to, and there it is.
And real quick, just to clarify for people as well, is projects. So here we have environments, but one further out is projects, right? So you have DatoCMS, projects, and then environments are within projects. Just so people understand that if you have a separate project, environments are within a project.
Are within a project, yes.
Right, just to make sure we're clear on that. Okay, thank you.
And then you can set the endpoint in your project, in your code. The docs tell you exactly how to do that. And you just pass an environment variable, and you can read for whatever environment you want to work with. If you don't pass anything, you'll be with the primary environment. If you pass the name of a different environment, that you can read the data from that environment and use that to do testing and development. And this is just, again, to get more context before we get into coding, this is what the recommended workflow is for using migration scripts to modify your backend, so your environment in Dado. And the idea is when you begin, you have your main environment, whatever it's called, and that is the primary environment for your project. So that's what's in production. Then you can fork it, as we did just a second ago, and you get an exact copy of it, a sandbox environment, and you can use that to do development. Dado suggests in the docs, it is strongly suggested that you use only migration scripts to modify your sandbox environment, okay? And that's so that we can then run those scripts to create a new environment that will become the primary. Anyways, you do all your testing and development here, all the new features you want to add. When you're ready to merge, this is the flow to follow. You put Dado in maintenance mode, and you can see here, if we go again to settings, environments, you can put Dado in maintenance mode just by clicking here or from the command line too.
Quick question.
That just stops any, yeah.
When you fork the environment, not only do you get the content schema, but you're getting all the content as well, right? That's in production.
Exactly.
Okay.
Exactly.
And then you can mess around with that content and it doesn't affect production.
Exactly.
Okay.
You can do anything you want, and it won't. And that's why it is really useful. So you can always sandbox environments, you can delete them, you can change them, you can make mistakes. It's not going to affect anything that's in production.
But it's important to bring in that content because you need some content to test anyway.
Yes.
Perfect.
But by the time you're ready to merge, maybe there is new content that has been added to your primary environment, and you want to bring that too. So what you do is we put Dado in maintenance mode, and that stops anybody from adding content to Dado, right? Then you rerun your scripts. The scripts create a completely new sandbox environment that starts out as a copy of the primary, and that then is modified in accordance to your scripts. So then you have a new sandbox environment that has everything that was on the primary plus the changes you want to incorporate. At this point, you can deploy your app or your website pointing to this newly created sandbox environment. So you can test everything, make sure that it works, that it's exactly what you want. And at that point, you can promote your environment. And again, you can do that here. There is this button, or you can do it from the command line. And when you promote your newly created environment, it will just turn that environment into the primary environment. And at this point, we can turn maintenance mode off, and ta-da, we've switched to a new environment. Also, that means that you have a new primary environment, but your old environment is still there. It has just been demoted to a sandbox. But if you have any problem and you want to go back to what you had before, it's still there. You just promote it, and you're back where you were before. So.
Quick question on the maintenance mode. When you turn on maintenance mode, is that mode accessible via the API? So your front end, let's say your website, when you turn on maintenance mode on DatoCMS, will know, hey, it's a maintenance mode, and maybe you don't want to show the website. Maybe you want to show a temporary, we're bringing you new features or something like that. Is that available? Do you know that through the API, knowing that it is a maintenance mode?
Usually your website, what it will do is it will just stop anyone from making changes to the primary, but your website should still be fine, like the last thing that you had just before turning into maintenance mode. It's mostly to stop, for example, people from inserting new content.
Got it. Okay, yeah. Makes sense.
Okay, so we're going to focus now on this step here, how to write migration scripts to modify your environment. So let's go over here. Okay, and so how do you get started? First thing you need to do is to install the Dato client. I've already done it, so I'm not going to do it again. But here on the docs, you have exactly how to do it. It's really easy, just one command, npm or yarn, whatever you use. And then you have to set up the API token, which is the full access token that you have on your project. You get it from here. You just go to API tokens and the full access API token, and you'll use that as the docs tell you to, and then you'll be ready to start running migrations. Yeah. So the project we're going to look at that I'm going to use to demonstrate today is this. It's just a blog. It just has blog posts and authors, and I'm going to concentrate on the author model. The author model has just these two very simple elements. It has a name, a line, a string field for a name, and an asset field with a picture. And if we see content authors here, yeah. So it's just like this, very simple. And after we have done our scripts, the final point we want to get to is this. So we're going to add a modular block field here that will have two options, avatar and contact. We'll also pre-fill one of them, this one. So let me see if I can show you another one that's empty. Yeah, so we are going to add this field to the author model, and then so that one can add a contact, which will just be an email field or a picture. Okay, so that's what we're going to do. Let's see. And I wanted to show you, the docs are really, really great. They have all the information you need. This is the docs for the data management API. It tells us how to create a modular block field, which is what we're going to do. So basically, as we can see in this example, you create the block or blocks that you want to add, and then you go into your model, you create a modular block field, and you pass the IDs of the blocks that it should be able to accept. So we're going to do that. And I wanted to show you, once you install the data client, you can just do this and you can see all the commands that are available with it. So to migrate, create environments, and a number of different things. But
Real quick,
let's
can you
get
give an overview what is the Dado client and why we need it? For those that may not be aware of it.
It's just the CLI for the command line. It allows you to run these various commands. So for example, now that we run migrations, you do Dado new migration, you pass a name, and it will create a migrations directory and a migration file with the name, with a timestamp and the name that you pass to it. It just enables you to use the API from the command line.
From the command line, right. And this can be installed through NPM?
It's what I showed, yeah. It's what I showed at the beginning.
Right there,
here.
yep, perfect.
NPM or yarn, whatever you prefer to
Got
use.
it.
One command and you install it.
Great,
Okay?
thank you.
You're welcome. Okay, so let's get started. The first thing we're going to do is to add, so Dado new migration. This will create our migration file, a migrations directory, and our first migration file. And I'm going to call it create contact block. There you go. And now I jump into our project. And ta-da, there it is. We have a migrations directory and this new file. It always comes pre-filled like this. And we're just going to delete what's in there. It's just some examples to help you get started, but we're not going to use that. I'm going to copy this code here. And here we are. So this is how, and this, again, the details, you just look at the docs, they're really great. This is how you create a block. Let me show you really quickly. This is, so this is all the documentation on the content management API. It tells you how to deal here with blocks. Models, blocks, fields, anything that you need to do, it gives examples. It's very complete. And so if we want to create a block, it's created, it tells us here, just like a model, but it takes a parameter. Where is it? Modular block that takes a Boolean. Here it is, modular block. So that's what we do here. We're going to say, okay, contact block, create. We're going to give it the name contact. This is the API key we want, and it's a modular block. So we save our file. We jump back to our command line. And now we're just going to run the migration. So this is the command, Dado migrate. Then in this case, we pass a flag destination and we give it any name we want. That's going to be the name of the environment that's going to be created. So it tells us it's creating a fork of main called example. And it's running the migration, and now it's done. So if we go back, sorry, let me close this. If we go back to our project here, here it is, example. And if we go to our blocks library, there it is, our new block, contact. Of course, we haven't added any fields to it, so it's empty. So now let's go and add some fields to that. So the process is always the same. We first create the file with this command, create new migration, pass the name that you want, and to say add fields to contact block. Okay, it creates the file for us. If I go here to the migrations directory, there it is. Again, I need to delete all of this, copy our file. There we go. So to get this, okay. The first thing we do is we go find the block that we're going to add a field to. If this were a model, we would go find the model that we're going to add a field to. I added this just so we can print the field to the console so you can see what it looks like. To print the block. And here we create the field. So we do email field, create. We pass the ID of the block that the field is, where the field is going to be created. Label, API, field type string, because we just want, you remember, is that email field. All of the fields that you create, they're going to need validators and appearance. So let's go back to the docs real quick. This is how you create a new field. And here, when you want to create a field, you can go here, look for the field that you want. In this case is a single line string. It tells you what you need to pass, what field type it needs to be, what possible values you can have. Sometimes some values are required, sometimes they are optional. Here it tells you the options, and then, for example, here, possible values for editor. We want a single line. Here you have the validators. You find everything that you need to know for passing the right parameters. We save our file. We jump back to our command line. And we run it. Notice that now, since I'm going to be running this migration, the same environment that we created before, I don't pass the flag destination. I pass this flag source, and I pass the name of the environment, which I called example, and in place. We run it. It tells us migrations are being run there. This is what I printed before. So the block, just so you see what it's an object, and it has all the fields associated with it. And it ran our migrations. So now if we go back to the project, here we go. Our contact block has a single line string field for email. And if you open it, you can see it has the API key that we passed. We passed validations required. We said it must match a specific pattern of email. All right. So now what I want to do is to add the modular content field to the author model. Remember, we're doing this to have a modular content field in our author model that can accept the contact block or another block, which we will create in a second, that is an image. So let's go and create that modular content field. Again, we start with this command, new migration. I'm calling it add profile blocks to author model. We send it. There it is. We go here to our migrations directory, and here it is. We delete all of this. And here we go. Okay. So in this case, I'm going to need to pass information about the model where I want to create my the modular content field, and that's going to be the author model here on line 6. And I also need to pass the ID of the kind of block I want to be able to add to that field. And so it's the contact block right here on line 5. So first I get those two variables, and then I'm ready to create the field like this. So fields created, I pass the author model where it needs to be created. The API key, and again, you find all of that in the documentation. It tells you if you are going to create a modular field, modular content field, you need to pass field type rich text. Here we have in the validators, item types, and you pass the IDs of the blocks that can be inserted into that modular content field. Okay, and so we're ready. We save this. We go back to our command line, and we send the migration like this, just like the last migration that we sent. There it is, it's done. So we can go back here. We can go to our models, author, and here it is. We have our modular content field that accepts only this type of block, contact. And now, again, maybe it gets a little repetitive because it's really just the same process over and over again. I just wanted to show all of you how to add different kinds of fields. So here I'm going to send a new migration to add an image block to the profile field. So here we are going to create the image block and add it to the blocks that are valid entries for the profile field. So we go back here, we refresh our migrations directory, and here it is. Delete all of this stuff. Okay. So the first thing we're going to do is create the image block. So like we did before, it's we give it the name avatar and API key, and it's a modular content block. Okay. And then we're going to add an image field to this content block, which right now it's empty. So here we are. You'll find this in the docs. If you want to create an image field, it's going to take the field type file, and it takes a number of possible validators. You can find it here. So you would come here and say, okay, I want to create a single asset. It tells you you need to pass the field type file. It tells you the possible values for editor and the possible validators that you can pass. So for example, extension. And if you look here on extension, it tells you it can take these parameters. I'm going to use predefined list image because we want to create an image. So here we are. This code from lines 11 to 26 will create the image that we want. And then we need to add the image as one of the possible blocks that can be added to the profile blocks field, right, in our author model. So here I go and get the field profile blocks from the author model. I do that in line 28. Then on line 29, I get the valid block types that are in this moment accepted by that field, because then here I go to update the field, and notice I only need to pass what I'm changing, what I'm updating in the field. Inside here, I don't need to go back and pass all the properties of the field. And in the item types that can be inserted, I want to pass an array that takes all of those types that were already valid types for the field and this new one that I just created. Okay, so we save this. We jump back to our command line, and we send this command that we've already used like 3 times before to run the migrations in place. Okay, we jump back to our project. And here it is. So the profile blocks field in the author model now can accept also an avatar block. And if we look at our blocks library, we have this new block, which just takes, it's a single asset, just takes a picture. Okay. And then the last thing I wanted to show you is how to add content to a field. Even though migrations should mostly be used to change the structure and not the content, but sometimes you need to say you change the structure and you need to take some previous content from a field that you're going to cancel to a new field. Then you need to know how to add content, and that's something you can do. So here we go. I'm going to create this new migration, update author record with new profile blocks content. So what we're going to do is find a specific author record and add some content to it. So here's our new migration file. Again, we just delete the stuff that is in it to begin with. We will need to add this because we're going to use this build modular block function to add the modular add content to add 2 new blocks to the author field that we're going the author record that we're going to modify. Okay. So Okay, I'm going to go step by step. The first thing I did is from lines 7 to 17 to retrieve all the author records that already exist. Okay. And here on line 15, I pass all pages through, just because if you don't pass this, you will only get the records that the first page is also records. So this way you can get all of the records that exist. Then I retrieve a specific record here. I'm just taking the one for one of the authors. So we go to content, authors. I just wanted to change this record. Okay, so I look for the record with the name Eva Luna. Then I looked for the content of the picture in that record, because I'm going to show you how to take that content, this picture here, and add it to our avatar block using migrations. So of course I need to have that content. That's what I do in line 23. Then here I get the blocks that I want to add. I need the block type, so I go find the avatar block type and the content block. And then here, with all that information, I'm finally ready to update the record. And this is how you add blocks to a modular content field. You pass this function, client items update. You pass the ID of the record you're going to update. That's line 31. Then profile blocks, because that's the API key name for the field. Then we use this function build modular block and pass the item type. We pass the ID of the block we're adding, and then the content. So I'm going to add the content Eva Luna picture here on line 35. Comes from line 23. So I just got the content from the existing record. And then here I'm creating a contact block and directly passing a string content for the email. Okay, so we save this, we jump in here, and we run the migration once again. All right, and there we are. You see it appear here. So we created this avatar block. It added the content, and here contact, and it added the content we wanted.
That's very cool. Now, question for you. If we wanted to use the API to delete, so once you migrate, like you want to delete that, can we use the API to delete not only the content, but then delete a field from the content type? Yep.
Yeah. And you can see it. The docs will show you exactly how to do that.
Yep.
Let's see. You'd go here, field, and see, it shows you how to create a new field, update, retrieve, delete a field. And here it will tell you exactly how to do it. Usually the examples are really helpful. You just tweak them to what you need.
And of course, you got to be pretty careful with that, because when you're deleting stuff,
Definitely.
Although even though you're in sandbox,
but you are in a sandbox environment, so
right,
if you
just don't promote it by mistake.
Yeah. No, that is really important. Yeah. But you can really, it's really useful, because you can do all kinds of things here and have peace of mind that it's not going to accept anything. If you make a mistake, if you do something you don't want, you need to roll back. You go fork your primary again.
Right.
And you're back to where you wanted. Or you delete the last migration file that you didn't want and rerun the previous ones in a new environment. And once you've done all of this, we could, do the sort of workflow that I was saying before. So we created this example environment running all the migrations that we did. We could go here and delete it. No problem. We have all of our migrations here. We could suppose, we want to do this, right? We liked all the changes that we made. Now we want to incorporate them into primary. We can turn on maintenance mode here. We rerun all of our migrations. Dado migrate destination, and we're going to call it, well, we can call it example again because I already deleted it. It's going to run all of the migrations one by one. It's going to recreate, it's going to first fork main, then run all the migrations that we did. This is just because I was still printing that field that I wanted to show you. And when this is done, we have a new environment. We can promote it to primary. There it is. And turn maintenance mode off. And now we've run through the whole process for incorporating the changes that we made into production, basically.
That's a good workflow. Can you promote environments via scripting?
Yes, definitely. So
okay, so you can literally take care of pretty much everything through script.
Yes, you can do all of this, and that's really useful because you can also do this whole process. You can automate it. You can add it to a CDCI pipeline.
Right.
Run tests and just have all of that go by itself every time you push. Like there is, let's see. You can also check if there are new migrations to run or not. So you can send it into your pipeline and have a command here that will check if there are new migrations. It will run them and do all of this. If there are no new migrations, it will just run through your normal pipeline.
That makes sense.
And yeah, it's really great.
Now, do you have any best practices you recommend? Like I've noticed you have a script to create a block, then a script to create the field. Do you recommend putting it like that, separating it, or can you just write one big script, or do you have any best practices that you recommend?
Honestly, I only separated them so much. I did it really atomically, if you will, for the sake of showing it. But I think maybe when you're starting, it's easier to write shorter scripts to check your steps. But then, it's fine if you are doing something that is all related, then you can just do it all in one script.
Got it. Yeah. Okay. So, okay, perfect. Fantastic. Thank you so much. I think you've answered all the questions and you really showed a really great workflow here for doing everything through script, right? So you really don't have to touch the admin portion at all. If people want to get a hold of you, I see you got your email there. Is that the best way?
Definitely, yeah.
Okay, cool. Well, Natalia, thank you so much. I really appreciate you presenting. I hope you come back here and present again. And I hope you have a wonderful end of year and a healthy 2022.
You too. Thanks for having me.
And thanks to the rest of you for being here. I really appreciate it. I hope you enjoyed the last live lesson this year. For 2021. For those of you watching on demand, it was 2021. So we will see the rest of you in 2022. A lot more stuff coming up. So thank you so much. And until then, have a very happy new year and a healthy one. Cheers, everybody.